What is up, Merce Nation? Javier Mercedes here for yet again another Passion in Progress podcasting thing where we talk to people and what they're passionate about and how they're striving in the progress towards that passion. Man, I'm getting way better at that as I go on, doing it on the fly. Guess what? This is probably going to be the best podcast that I ever come up with in the history of podcasting ever. Is that narcissistic? I don't know. We'll find out here in a little bit. We have one of the best guests here on the podcast today. I'm so excited to hear what we talk about. We have Paget Pinto, who is the founder of BirthTube Live on Facebook and probably going to be taking over just the internets in all things birthing. I just want to start this off by saying I don't want to like disrespect anybody in the birthing community because there's only so much I know about it. But Paige, can you give the audience a little bit of your background?
Yes. Man, that was so good. Now I feel like I have to sit up straight and live up to this. But it's probably not your best one. You should continue listening, but you've had some really, really great guests on it.
Oh,
okay, so
she's plugging my past podcasts.
yes, there you go. No, but really, I love it. Love it. Okay, so I am Paget Pinto, and I can we just say like I'm Javi's neighbor. How weird is that?
Yeah.
And ex-nanny.
Yeah.
Which kind of ties into the BirthTube story. So
yes, it's even better.
So I have a 2-year-old. I had a home birth with him. I decided to have another home birth with my second. It's weird looking straight in your eye. Now I know why you weren't looking at me a while ago.
Yeah.
And so I decided to have another home birth because I just loved it so much with my second. But I'm not super like, when you think of home birth, some people think of like super crunchy as a term or hippie.
Super crunchy? I've not heard. See, these
are
the things that I'm just like, this is such a world I'm not a part of. I've had it, so actually continue with what you need to say.
I feel like this is, I'm super excited about this podcast because I feel like we just start geeking out.
I think it's going to be so hard to like fit it in an hour.
I know. Okay.
All right.
So
continue with who you are.
I decided to have another home birth. I loved it so much. I'm not crunchy. I'm a little soggy. And so I decided that I wanted to stream my birth live on Facebook Live. At like 8 months. So it was a very impulsive, like, hey, I think I'm just going to stream my birth live because YouTube birth videos really helped me prepare for my first. I had so many questions of like, how do they fill the pool? How do they get rid of the water in the pool? All of the above, right? And
these are the particulars that you ask yourself when going into birthing.
Yes. So, and also like, there's a lot of skeptics out there, including like my grandma. And, they're like, oh, home birth. And they think it's like one way, but it's really not. So I'm like, what if I just like pulled back the curtain and just like let people see what a home birth looks like? And long story short, I made a Facebook group. And so it was a little private because I got to see who was joining, but I really didn't care. Hopefully my husband doesn't listen. I lied to him and I was like, oh yeah, I'm vetting everyone. And I'm like checking out everybody's profile and like, oh, it's just female. And I let a couple of like doula males in the group. And anyway, so little did I know, I thought it would just be like maybe friends and family and a couple of people that love birth. And it turned into 7,000 members in, I think like 6 weeks is when
Crazy.
Before I gave
That's
birth.
Before you gave birth.
I started the group 6 weeks before, and then people came out of nowhere, and it was so awesome. And so that's kind of like where the thought came from and like how it all, I wish there was like I need to come up with a better story.
Well,
so there I was.
So I think in order to give context to the people, like anybody that's basically listening to this probably already knows you and your story, but for the few that are like just know me and they're coming for the Javier Mercedes.
Why are you talking about birth?
But to give them context, I think the best way is just to say the numbers. So how long have you had BirthTube right now?
I am such a numbers person. That's why I'm really excited about this podcast. 'Cause I don't really I do a lot of interviews, but all I talk about is I love my birth story and I love those interviews, but it's hard to talk about my birth story. I want to talk numbers and I want to talk nerdy and marketing stuff and business stuff. So 6 weeks before I made the group, and then when I gave birth, we had 7,000 members, and it was called just Page's Home Birth. It was nothing particular. Right after I gave birth, so just like the live stream, literally we just carried the phone around with us, and I'm a little bit modest. Not all of it's now called BirthTube is not modest, but so that's kind of how it went. And then right after my birth, I had women messaging me and like, hey, I want to stream my birth live. And I thought we had built such an amazing community of like women supporting women. They were so awesome on the live feed. I was like, I don't want this group to go to waste. And I did at that moment, talking about like business stuff, I did have a decision to make, like a 1-day decision, because the following day, the other mom went into labor. And
oh, no joke.
So it was 1 week after. It was exactly
I thought
1
this
week.
was like you were having a birth and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Let's just host births.
No, it kind of was like that. Like my day after video of like, hey, here's a recap of like my version of the story was whenever people were like, hey, we should, I want to stream my birth. And so then I had to think of it like that day. Okay, do I want to save this group for myself and 7,000 women that watch me give birth and just like save it for updates of my daughter and like they watched her be born? Or do I want to create a different group and build that up and then let this be the birthing group? And so I decided that day I would turn BirthTube into a birthing group and I would just start a separate group. And I went back and forth for a while, like, oh my gosh, I think I made a mistake. I probably should have, because at first I was thinking, okay, well this will be, I'm talking so fast because I'm so excited. This will be like a blog, like, oh, well, I'll just start like a blog, and that's what I can turn this experience into. And so then I was like, man, I should have just kept it. But I am so glad I did not, because 1 week later, we had another home birth, and she was in Canada. And then we had...
You're already international. That's great.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, first weekend, you're international.
I know. And then right after that, we had a hospital birth. And, yeah, that's what BirthTube is. We are streaming birth live all over the world.
How long have you had it so far?
Okay, so back to numbers. So we have 10 months. Well...
So 10 months since you had your birth, right?
10 months, yes.
And you have now, right before we had our podcast, or we started this, she now has 37,000.
Yes.
37,000 members of her private group on Facebook.
People have to join. We are female only. And so they have to join. They have to go through like a process. They have to sign like our rules. So it's pretty vetted. So it definitely turns some people
just
away.
To disclose, she does vet them now. And
I do now. I do now.
So also to do research for this podcast, I tried to join the group, and then in the thing it says hey, before you try to even submit, go read this little disclaimer and all this stuff. And right at the top is like no males allowed. Yep. And so I still hit submit, and I was like, hey, I'm Paige's neighbor. We're doing a podcast. Just want to do research. Probably not going to get in, but hey, you guys keep doing your thing. And then I hit submit.
I love it. So we actually have like a security team, and which is just a couple of doulas and myself that go through every single one. So I have to start talking about business, did you sign up for our email list? Because that is on my rules. You don't have to sign up, but it's like playing all areas.
Yeah. So it's Instagram, it's email, and all that stuff. It's like in the questionnaire you have, well, do you want to see pictures of births and things like that? And I'm like, my answer was sure ? And then since I was on a computer, I was like, I don't know how to put emojis into the thing, so I typed out in parentheses shoulder shrug emoji.
Yes. I wonder if we did any member requests today, because I want to go find yours if we've approved anybody today. Yeah.
I will say though, when you do go into the Facebook, you find the public page, which anybody can join, and then it's like, hey, if you want to see these births, here's the private page, the group where everybody's having the discussions and everything. And when you go to join it, though, it says for you to go check the description. And then if you have a window up to go do that, you have to like undo all of the things that you've done in order to go back to do it.
Yeah, I know it's really confusing, but there's no other way around it, because that's like the only public thing that you can see without being a member. but people work for it. They're like, I get emails every day of like, hey, like my pending request has been there for like 2 hours. I'm like,
wow.
Okay,
so
like
cool.
I will let you in whenever I have time to get back and do requests.
I guess that does account for people that are like family members and other people that want to get in to watch the live birth, and then it's like, hey, I want to go see this like right now.
Yes.
You know?
So there is a process. I'm telling you, this is like it. I feel like midwives and doctors are on call, but I also feel like I'm on call because when a birth goes live, it's such a process. So I want to make sure everybody that's in pending member requests that they are all approved for that reason. I mean, there's other reasons because I want them to like get in whenever there's a birth happening live, but also there might be a family member in there that's wanting to come see whoever's giving birth, and I don't want them to like miss it. So so that's part of my process. And then I have to like post on Instagram, like, hey, we have a birth live. We have a texting feature. So we have about 2,000 women that have signed up to receive a text message whenever a birth is live. So then I send out the text message to notify those people that, hey, we have a birth going on right now.
So on top of it.
It's so crazy. And I'm just making it up as I go. Like, it is definitely a passion in progress.
Boom.
Yes.
Boom. Plugs. Leave me a review on iTunes.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, reviews go a long ways.
Yeah. It took me until George's one to even figure out like, oh, you're supposed to ask people to review your thing so you can get into the whole algorithm of iTunes, and so it's discoverable and all that stuff.
And I think it's important to ask people. I'm such a business guru, and it's so weird. But yeah, like at first I was like, oh, I don't want to like ask people to invite their friends to the group, because it's kind of annoying if you are just added to a group. But I'm like, you have to ask people, like you have to give them an invitation to do something, because they might not just know. So they might not know for podcast, in order to like boost it and like for other people to see it. You have to leave a review. So leave a review.
There we go. Devoting like 2 minutes of talking about it. That means like somebody's, at least somebody leave a review. 5 stars, hopefully. So as you grow, tell me about the team under you now. Like, is it just you, or what's crazy to me is it's been like 10 months since you like in some change that you started this, and it's like been exponential growth. How has the journey been so far in terms of, well, I have this audience now. How, like, where do I direct this energy? Where do I go from there? So
it's all a big learning experience. I have made a lot of mistakes. And okay, so it's about a team. So at first, and I don't know, I'm just like making things up as I go. So at first it was just a mom's group. In a mom's group, there's like members of the group that want to help be an admin. Like, it's almost like a title. Like, oh yeah, I'm an admin. #admin. Right? And so I appreciated that so much. So I had a few people that watched my birth live, that were there from the beginning, that wanted to help.
They were the OG.
They were the OG, the original group. And so they helped, and BirthTube turned into a business pretty quickly. And that's still like, people are sensitive to the fact that BirthTube is a business and I have to make money from birth, which is just crazy. But it's not that I don't know. That's a whole nother rant. But so people that were helping me, the couple of people that were helping me, they of course wanted to get paid. I mean, I wanted to get paid too. And so I just like, we had to switch a few things up, and then they decided they didn't want to help, which is totally fine. I understand. And then, so right now I am paying the things I have to pay in order to build and grow BirthTube. But I'm just keeping my head above water. So we have a couple of helpers that help out with like the vetting and member requests, because we receive anywhere from like 3,000 to 4,000 new members a month. Now, like we were at 1 to 2, and now we're about 3 to 4, and that's a full-time job in itself, just to look at every single profile. And I'm so thankful for them that they are still doing it. They're donating and volunteering their services, and in return, I do market their like doula business and That's kind of at one point I want to pay them. But yeah, so I've had to like hire a legal team because we're streaming birth live and there's a liability to it. Of course, web developers, and there's just so much more.
What was your
virtual assistant.
What was your first because obviously what's cool about this is because we're neighbors, I think like Paige and I, we like talk to each other just about like internet like social audience things about like once or twice a week, like whenever we're dropping the kids off.
We totally nerd out. Like
Yeah.
I think Sabrina, his wife, is
Yeah.
probably a little annoyed with us. 'Cause
Yeah, actually, she's gotten to the point where she's like, she takes my son back to the home, and then Paige and I are still talking about things like, oh, did you hear this podcast about this one thing? I lost my train of thought.
Oh, sorry. See, that's what happened.
But it's cool. I like this factor of it.
I think we forgot to go back and say, so I had to quit being Javi's nanny for his son.
Yeah.
Not Javi's nanny, but his son's nanny. Because BirthTube, it just, it happened overnight. I don't want to say it kind of went viral, but it didn't like viral. When I think of viral, I think of like millions, bazillions, you know, but in a business way, it kind of went viral. Like I started a business the same day that I gave birth, and
You were on it. You were. On
I had
it.
to jump on it.
Yeah.
I had to jump on it, and I also wanted to do the birth world a service. Like it would be a disservice if I would have been like, oh, and even now, like if I would just be like, oh, I don't want to grow this, or I don't want to do podcast interviews, or whatever the case is, then I think we would be doing the birth world a disservice too.
Yeah. All right. I remembered it. You gave me enough time. Within your first whatever month or whatever, what was your first person that you sought out to look at? Was it an accountant? Was that the legal team? Was it a web developer? What's the first person that was outside of you that was like, I need this in order to legitimize what I'm doing?
So I think I probably did in a little bit of a wrong order, but so it's just kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like I had to keep my head above water. It was something happened, I had to react. Like it was I was not planning ahead. I wasn't like, even now, I wish I could like be working on stuff that moves my business forward, but instead I'm just trying to keep us alive. But so my first one was a lawyer because I think a month, I don't know, 2 months into like BirthTube being BirthTube, like after I gave birth, we had a sponsor reach out to us, and
you're like, oh crap.
yeah, and it was a big contract. Like, I mean, the money, it was good. I mean, I wasn't making.
You're not buying Lambos.
No, nothing along that. I barely got to quit my job.
But you're getting sponsored.
Yes, but it's pulling teeth. So I had to hire a lawyer to review that contract and know what I was getting into. And then I also have the women that are streaming their birth live. They also have to sign an agreement. So he had to write that up as well. So that was my first hire. My second one was a virtual assistant, and she's also a graphic designer.
Boom.
Yeah,
Awesome.
which I didn't really use much of her graphic design as much as I should have. But in my thought process to that was she could do so many things that I didn't know how to do, and that would have taken me so long to do.
Yeah.
And me working on BirthTube, that's whenever Jax, my son, was not in daycare. So that was taking me away from my kids. So I was like, either I pay for a virtual assistant to help me on these things so I can spend more time with my kids, or I spend twice as much time trying to do whatever she could do in an hour. So that was my second hire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's when my team quit. They were like, she's paying a graphic.
Really? Yeah, but it's like, it's definitely the things where you can't, like, what value are you bringing to the table? And then there's only so much that you can do with your time. And also, like, look, these are the resources that we have. This is what's coming in. Like, I'm not paying myself as well, guys. Like, what do you expect, you know?
And I wish people knew that. There's so many people that don't know the business side of things. Like, yes, I have sponsors and it's been great, but I'm still in debt. I'm still in a lot of debt. And yeah, and especially if you factor in like quitting my full-time job. Javi paid pretty well, in case y'all want to know. And then paying for daycare now because this is my job. Like I go to my office every single day, and so my son has to go to school. So if you factor in all that, I'm like, we're still on the hole, but we're moving up. So yeah, we still have sponsors. It's like pulling teeth because people aren't used to sponsoring Facebook groups. They're used to sponsoring like Instagram posts. And so it's been in podcasting, sponsored podcast. But so it's been like a teaching progress I have had to like teach sponsors like how our Facebook group operates and how they would fit into the whole thing. And also it's, I don't know. People just...
You have to find the right market of people to... Basically, you have to take the people that are over here, the advertisers, and then you have to take the actual audience and be like, all right, this is a great marriage of people. This is the audience you're looking for, which I guess is what, like, I'm just spitting whatever for whatever normal, any business.
Yeah.
But as I do things in the YouTube world and doing these podcasts, the video, I see Reddit as a place where like you go and you search out a group on Reddit, right? So recently I did that podcast with Justin Tordella. He's a graphic designer, and I posted it on a graphic design subreddit.
Yeah.
And then within an hour, I had 15 views on the video because those people are interested in graphic design, how you grow in that space, what are they doing to like just do graphic design things.
Yeah.
I see that as a micro analogy of like, well, you have like an audience of 37,000 people on a Facebook.
Yeah, let's say women, and then they
it's
are
a specific group.
So many of them are expecting because they come to BirthTube to like see what what birth looks like, and it's a learning experience, and so they're preparing for so that's a niche. Like that's what a lot of companies, baby and pregnancy, maternity wear companies are looking for. Like that's their target audience. But they're not knocking at my door.
Yeah. I actually just saw this post by Gary Vaynerchuk right before this podcast, actually. And he was like, you're looking to get sponsored. Literally take all of the things that are within your niche, start calling all of them up. And then you have the conversation with them. They say, hey, I have this. What can I do to get sponsored? It's this per post, whatever the stipulations are in the group. And then they're like, no. So then you find like the few yeses, but then they're like, all right, we want 1% equity in your company along with whatever. And then it's like, as you go on further, you find the happy medium of like, well, these people are asking for like so less of what I'm actually valued at, and then there's other people where they're just like no, and then you find that happy medium of what to ask for. Is that like where you're at right now, just like reaching out to any and everybody in that space?
Yeah, for the most part. Like I still want to stay true to just promoting like things that I love and brands I love, because you can tell when somebody's doing a sponsored post and they're really just not into it. And I actually had to turn one down recently that I was super bummed about, and the money was great. It would have been great support for BirthTube. But yeah, so I'm reaching out to, I've sent probably 200.
What do you do? Do you do email? Do you do Twitter? Do you do DMs through IG? How are you doing it?
So I've tried them. I've tried them all. But I'm so good on the phone, and I feel like that's like...
Dang, yeah, it's true.
I wish that I could just pick up, but there's not like a number. Like you can't just call like the marketing department and be like, hey, so let's chat.
Yeah.
So...
There's a barrier to entry.
Yeah. So, and there's so many people, I'm going to answer that question, but there's so many social media influencers that just don't talk about it. Like it's hard to find. Like I had no idea what to charge per post, sponsored post. Luckily, our first sponsor brought me a number, and I kind of based it off of that. But then that wasn't like, I don't know. Everyone is just so different, and nobody is willing to talk numbers. And I'm kind of right there right now. Yeah. I'm not talking numbers, but so I didn't.
All the listeners are like, well, how much is, Well, you don't want to compromise.
Although
like,
it's been out there.
What it was before, and then what it is after, and then say you're at like 2 months down the line, you just got like 10,000 more followers or whatever that is, then it's like, well, no, what I asked of some company before is going to be completely different, especially like if you can say 10 months into your BirthTube, you've gotten 37,000 viewers, like it's like, yeah. Anyhow,
and then engagement is through the roof, and that's what sponsors are looking for is engagement. And we have over 100,000 comments a month, which is so many comments. Yeah. And like very
look at that.
minimal
You know
posts.
the numbers, but and all the stuff behind like what you're pitching. Yeah.
And we have like very minimal posts because we're not like the average Facebook group. I only let the moms that are streaming their birth live. So we have about 25 a month that request to stream live. So they're the only ones that can post. So not all 38,000 women have access to post. Anyway, so the numbers are really great considering that we only have like 100 posts a month, which is crazy. Okay, so going back to at first, whenever I first got my first sponsor, I can talk these days. They asked me to send them a media kit, and
you were like,
what a media kit was. I had no idea. I was Googling, and there was like I had to send it to them by tomorrow, and so I was just scrambling all night, like up all night trying to get this thing together. And
is this before or after you had the graphic designer?
This was way before. This was like a month into BirthTube. I didn't even know what the heck I was doing.
Yeah.
And we had, I think at that point we had like 12,000 whenever they sponsored us, and they've been my biggest sponsor. They have been the one that paid the most.
OG.
Yes, which is crazy. So I couldn't base it off of that. Like, if I would have based it off that, we would be in the freaking 10,000. Like, oh, one post is $10,000, which is not realistic at all.
Yet.
We're still in the hundreds, just in case anybody's wondering.
Yeah.
And so I took that experience. I was like, okay, well, that's what sponsors want. They want like a whole email with a media kit attached and prices and everything up front. And which deep down, it kind of felt weird. And I wish I would have just like listened to my gut, because it kind of felt weird. Like I felt like I was making it maybe easier for them. Like, oh, here's all your answers. But then it just felt a little dirty. Like, hey, here's my prices. And I don't know. After listening to a few, I'm a podcast guru. So after listening to a few podcasts, I think I've learned that short and sweet and to the point, and what you can do for them. Like they care about numbers, but they really don't care about like your past experience or
exactly. What can you do for them now?
Yeah. So there was a big gap between there that I tried a lot of different things. I tried, hey, what's the DM through Instagram? Like, hey, what's the best email to send my media kit to?
But even there, you're creating friction of like, there's another barrier of like, well, then you're sending off to another spot and that whole thing.
Yeah, and I think I might still entertain that a little bit, sending DMs, because there's so many times that you just pull like the contact at whatever off of their website and it's not getting to the right person. So it's nice whenever they send you like an email, like, oh, email Katie at, and you're like, oh yes, I know this is like going to who it needs to go to. But right now I literally spent like 5 hours yesterday sending out sponsorship emails, and I'm finding brands that I need or like products that I need and want, I think will do really well on BirthTube, and finding out what their next product is coming out and if I can help them promote it. Like, hey, I see you have something coming out in X, Y, and Z. Here's what I can do for you. Would that be helpful? So I have to report back because I don't know how it's going to go because I just sent those. But I think short to the point and tell them how many followers I have, and hopefully that works. I don't know.
How much of each day? Could you break down a day for you? Like, what's your time management in terms of, because you still have a kid at home, Savvy. What are you doing during your day? How much of it is devoted to sending out this, like acquiring more capital for your business through sponsorships? And then what else is like actually being a part of the community, fielding the actual births going on, and then all that stuff? Like, what's a day look like for you?
That's no day is ever the same.
Which I don't think it should be. Yeah. But how do you manage your time?
So I work well under pressure. So right now we have no money for BirthTube. So I'm like, and my husband has totally cut me off. So I'm like, okay, I need to get more sponsors like this. And I kind of let it go for a while until that's kind of how I work now. I'm like, so it just kind of depends. It depends where we're at. But I did a whole Instagram story of like what I do all day, which was like a million different clips because Instagram stories are so short and there's a million things I do. Yeah. So it starts right when I wake up. And I mean, I used to check my phone in the middle of the night because if there was a birth going on, like I'm on call.
Which
like
just happens.
I have to watch the feed or watch the comments on the feed and make sure nobody's going rogue or being rude or whatever. I have to send out the message. So what is my day? I definitely like check BirthTube first, make sure there's no fires. There's always a fire to put out. So I pop back in pretty often on BirthTube just to make sure everything's going smoothly. And I do live videos on BirthTube. I love going live.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of like my jam.
That's what you started out with.
Yeah. So I do like live videos. I answer so many emails. We get so many emails we get a lot of member requests like, hey, I really want to get in the group. You're not doing it fast enough. Or like, hey, I might not qualify because my profile is new, and I have to email those back. And then I get a lot of product. This is probably boring to some people, but product emails like, hey, that want me to promote it for free.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, I totally get it. But we get so many that are like, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Can you post about it? So I do emails. I think what takes most of my time is setting up the moms that are going live. I have to review their requests, which is kind of like an application. And then I have to make sure they get in all their forms and they sign an agreement. Their provider and their birth team signs an agreement because I want everybody to be on board. I never want to go against hospital policy. I never want to go against a midwife or make anybody feel uncomfortable about streaming birth live because it's definitely not for everyone.
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of time. And then I have to like contact each mom. I mean, we have women that email me that want to stream. They're not even pregnant yet. And they're like, hey, can I save my spot? Can you email me whenever you're pregnant?
Can you say how many people did you have applying for doing a live stream like last month or this month, or like how many live streams did you actually have?
So it varies every month, but it's kind of surprising to me that the number of requests we get has been consistent. It's always been 20 to 25
a month.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
But I think that's kind of weird though, because like when we had like 10,000, we had the same. Whenever we have 20,000, we still have 20 women that want to stream their birth live. But not all 20, 25 goes live because birth is unpredictable, and sometimes things speed up really quick. Or
I saw a picture on the public BirthTube page that was crazy, where the lady was in the hallway of the hospital and she was sprinting in. So do you know the story behind it?
I don't know, no, but pretty much it happened really fast. They were trying to get into the room and
she ends up giving birth. So there's a sequence of pictures where she ends up giving birth just in the hallway of the hospital, and it looks awesome because, well, however you want to take it, but like literally the husband is there taking her wife in, and she's like kind of keeled over, and then all of a sudden it's like the next couple
her pants down.
the next couple pictures are nurses sprinting in with the doctor, and then all of a sudden she's on the ground in the hospital in the hallway just giving birth. I was like, man, that is quite the story for whoever that is when they grow up.
Oh my goodness. And that photographer, like, she captured some really amazing images, and I was like, oh, I wish that was on BirthTube. I wish we would have got that live, because that would have been awesome to see live. But yeah, and speaking of our Facebook page, the algorithm, this is a whole tangent, but I'm focusing on just our group and Instagram. I feel like Facebook pages are just, now that groups are so big, they're just not dying, but they're less engagement. I think because nobody sees them.
I think it's also because, this is definitely me speaking way under where I'm at, because obviously you're huge in the Facebook game. But to me, at a 30,000 foot view of Facebook group versus public pages, is you want to establish a conversation with the community, and you can't do that on a public page. In a community or in a group, it's like, cool, you can go live, you can do all those other things where you do a post and then people can have conversations underneath there about whatever you posted about, and then that's what I think really drives those numbers and things like that.
Yeah, and you know that your people are there, so you know, like whenever it's a group, like we are a birthing group, so you know that these are like-minded people, so of course you're probably gonna vibe with them. And then ours is a closed group, so people feel more comfortable sharing more in there, because it's not public. And yeah, we're all just kind of like a community. We're like a gated
A gated
neighborhood
community.
Yeah, like we're all just like in one area.
Just all these moms.
Yes.
Can you give a good example? Is there some story of people meeting other people within the community that like built up a story, or what's a good example of something that went on in the community that was just like a really cool positive impact?
Oh my goodness. Okay, this is so good. I have the perfect answer. I'm glad you asked this question. So it's actually happened twice. So I'll tell you one. So one mom, she went into labor. She was home alone because I think her husband he was working like an hour away, so he wasn't there yet. Things were picking up. She is, just to give you a visual in case you're wondering, she's sitting on the toilet because that's sometimes the best position whenever you're having a contraction, in case anybody wants to know anything about breath positions. And so the live feed is, so we can all talk on the live feed, like we can all type and chat on the live feed. And so we're all talking and things are picking up, and she's like, I don't know what to do. Like, no, and she was having a hospital birth. She was like, I don't know if anybody, like, they're going to make it in time, if I can drive myself. And so we were like, well, do you have a doula? And there's so many doulas in the BirthTube group. And so sure enough, there was a doula that lived close to her that came, and she was her doula for her birth. And that was really awesome. That's so cool. It was so cool. There was another one that happened the exact same. Nobody could give her a ride. And there was a doula that was on there. And she was like, hey, I don't think I live far from you. Came to her house, loaded her up, loaded her kids up, took her to the birth center, and was her doula for her birth.
How crazy is that?
It is so crazy.
That is like such a butterfly effect of like, hey, 10 months before I did this thing, and then now, like, oh, you, not personally responsible, but because of your actions and doing this group, you are now a part of these little like trickle off effects. That's
I hate to take the credit, but
well, no, I just mean
my
like
one action.
In terms of like this, having a place for people to build a community in that. It's crazy.
It is so crazy. And there's been so many people that have met because of BirthTube, that are friends, that are online friends. I mean, I could like name off my OGs. Like, we were just so close. We were so close. And then they started changing their profile pictures on me. And I'm like, can you change it back? Because I recognize you by your profile picture. Yeah. But it's really awesome. And then it's so rewarding getting those messages of just like, I had a home birth because I saw it was possible, or you gave me the confidence to do X, Y, and Z, or whatever the case might be. It's such a good feeling. It's very rewarding.
Speaking of the doulas, you're building another website, correct?
Yes, our website. 10 months in, we still don't have a website. And I think that's part of like legitimizing BirthTube.
So what I want to ask you is how are you diversifying from just your Facebook group, and how, like, as you grow, I'm as a business, it just doesn't seem good to put all your eggs in one basket. So talk about what your ventures are right now, because it's really exciting what you're building. Yeah, no, I'm super excited. So BirthTube is made up of, like I said, a lot of expecting women, moms or moms to be, and then a lot of birth workers, and we have a lot of doulas, and there are so many moms on there like, oh my goodness, they watch a live feed and they're like, oh, that's a doula and that's what she does. I want one of those. Where do I find one? And they just don't know. And we have such a tight community. They're like, they contact me and they're like, hey, do you know a doula in like Mississippi? And I'm like, I wish I knew everyone, but I don't. And so I have decided to build a resource that is a doula directory, so that for the women and families that are looking for a doula can go to our website and search location and find a doula. And I also want to support doulas and give them somewhere to market themselves and their services. And I'm so excited, but it is the biggest headache ever. Like, building a website is like building a house. It takes twice as long and it costs twice as much. Holy cow. You can tell you're speaking from experience for sure. I am like, I might die. But don't do that. It's not good for your health. Good one. No, I'm so excited. So I should have probably had a website
much sooner. I just wanted to do it
You've
right.
been doing all this in 10 months. I would just like give yourself credit because like because obviously there's so many other things. I think it's good that you sought the legal end first, but like, I mean, you're just only 10 months into it. Like you went from being a nanny to like, all right, I'm business person now. So like you're doing it, I think, at a fast pace.
Yeah.
But continue.
And I've never wanted to start a business, run a business.
Yeah.
But I actually love it now. Like I love the challenge.
You enjoy the journey?
I do enjoy the journey. The only thing that is different from my journey than a lot of people's journey is that I am under the spotlight because I didn't have a year to like make mistakes and nobody really saw them. You know, like get a client and you accidentally do X, Y, and Z and only that client sees. Like it is public and I have 37,000 women watching me right now. And so that was hard. That was hard, like being under the spotlight and people watching you build this thing and make all the mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a question or if that was.
Well, I think you had
it.
Yeah. I just want to cap off your doula directory.
Yeah.
And does it have a specific name for the website right now, or
so? BirthTubelive.com. Can you believe BirthTubecom is taken? Don't look it up. It actually isn't like active. It hasn't been active, and we've reached out to him, and he wants $5,000 for this domain, which I get it. I mean,
yeah.
So we're just going to be BirthTubelive.com.
Yeah.
Because I'm not about to fork out another $5,000.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then doulas can sign up, and it is a membership website. I think I just heard a podcast the other day that said people who pay attention. And also BirthTube has to be supported. So I'm super excited about it. And doulas can sign up and create their profile. And then any women and families that are looking for a doula can go find a doula on there.
Yeah. So basically all you're doing is taking that person from point A to point B, the doulas, matching them up. If there's somebody that needs I wish I knew a very like only 50 people in a town of Montana or something like that. And then like you can put that together, but it's so cool.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really awesome. And I just had a thought, but it left. But yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I did have a thought.
Go ahead.
And it's just going to be so easy to market it because we have a built-in community. So it's like, yes, I'm going to really focus on SEO and getting it on Google. But if you search BirthTube, that's the only thing that pops up. But I definitely want it to come up whenever somebody searches doula in my area. But it's a
double benefactor because it then brings in people into the community that weren't there before.
Which I'm okay with that. I want this to be like a public resource. And then I guess in a plus, you're saying. Yeah. In a positive. Yeah. So yeah, if other people find it and come in that way, we get a lot of people from Instagram, surprisingly, that just see our public profile on Instagram and then they join the group.
So look for that in the future.
It better be out like soon.
Hopefully by the time this podcast's out, you use promo code Passion in Progress.
Seriously.
Anyhow, getting back to what you were talking about in the beginning of you growing and everything, you're under the spotlight. And I know that you had, when you were talking to me, you were like, one thing I wish I didn't do is split up all of my groups and everything, and how like I had this one group and then I had this other group. And now you were like Savvy Mama. Then you were like, you were also trying to do like wedding, like other thing, like decorations and other stuff. And then it's like, I think a lot of people go through that where they're like, I just want to find that thing. And then once it latches, it's there. But talk to me about how you found your brand in BirthTube.
Yeah, so I think any creative deals with that. Even if you do have like that thing and you are really good at it, you still, I think just it's a creative mind. You are like, I can do this and I can do that and I can start a baby clothing line. Tried that. And
she did.
Oh my goodness. I ordered so much stuff and it's still upstairs in that closet. And my husband might kick my butt one of these days. So I'm like, are you having a girl? Great. Let me send you some clothes. But yeah, I think I ventured off a lot. I created a sister group. I created so my daughter's name is Savvy. So people started calling me the Savvy Mama. So I created the Savvy Mama group. And then I have my personal Instagram, which I haven't posted on there in months. And then I have BirthTube's Instagram. And looking back, I kind of just stopped them all except for BirthTube. Like, I just want it to be under one umbrella. Like, yes, BirthTube, I am kind of the face of BirthTube, but like, it's not about me, but people want to see the host behind it. They want to see who's making all the posts, and it builds community and connection. And so I don't post on my personal Instagram anymore, although I probably should. But
you're the one that's going, when you're talking and starting group discussions, I'm assuming you're the one going live and
yes,
furthering those discussions. So people see your face often.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely make a point. And then like any sponsored post is done by me, and then I go live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're incorporated within the BirthTube brand at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think the way I just found the brand, I think I'm still learning. People, I know my why, I think it's a learning process about like what's your brand and what you stand for. And I think people try to overcomplicate it, and I definitely have. And I still get a little confused. Like, I need to write it down and put it on my desk and be like, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. And here's our mission. Because
it's hard.
It's hard, especially when you see
super hard
everybody else, and I'm such a digger. I go and like dig
You're
into.
A gold digger.
I'm a
gold digger podcast.
Yeah.
Jenna Kutcher, she's really good. Anyhow.
Yeah, she's so good. Yeah, I go to like everybody else's profile, and I was never in the birth world. I just had
you are in the thick of things now.
Yeah, and so I feel like now that I'm like in the birth world, I need to speak birth language and do what everybody else is doing, and like speak like a midwife and a doula. And I tried that. I didn't really try it. I wasn't very good at it, but I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not the expert, and BirthTube needs, X, Y, and Z. And so I backed away for a while, and I could definitely tell a difference in like engagement, and people would reach out and be like, hey, like, where are you? Where have you been? Exactly. But I think it's important that you're the only thing that makes you, like, people are probably doing what you're doing. And I mean, nothing is super original. They might have a different name or color scheme or use different fonts, but at the end of the day, like, somebody's probably doing what you're doing, and you're the only thing that's going to make your thing different
and unique. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't even know if that answered your question, but so I guess like our brand is, I just go back to like, keep it basic. So we're like all about women supporting women, and we support all birth. I had a home birth. I love home birth, but I support hospital births. I support epidurals, whatever you choose, as long as you are informed and educated. So I think we have to like keep it simple.
So let's say you had the team underneath you, you had the sponsorships to get some ground there, and then you at least had the people there to support you in the act of vetting people and taking those other tasks out of your time so you can devote your time to doing other stuff. What is the overall goal of what you're trying to achieve?
I don't know if I have the overall goal. I think that 37,000 women is a lot of women, but there are so many more that we need to reach and get to, and they need to join BirthTube, and they feel like they would benefit from it. Yeah. But if you had
more time in your day to do the more things for BirthTube, what would you be doing?
Oh, I have so many big dreams, but I definitely want like a birth I want like our own BirthTube conference.
Like I could see 2 years, not even 2 years down the line, but like literally, hey, fly people out, and then that's the thing. You know?
I want to. I would love to. Once I get better at my speaking, I would love to speak.
Paget Pinto on the lecture circuit.
Yes, at like birth conferences. But I want to get to the point. I feel like I just don't have the mental capacity to think. Like, I want to clear up my brain so I can think beyond. I can think of like ways I can grow BirthTube, but my head is hurting right now because it is just so clogged full of like keeping my head above water. And I also want to start giving back. I would love to have like a BirthTube scholarship or something like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I would love for every mom that wants a doula to provide her a doula if she can't afford it. I think that insurance should pay for home births. They don't do that anymore. I would love to like make a loud, noisy impact in that, and like just dig really deep into that.
Awesome.
I would love the resources to start thinking beyond. Just not there yet, and I feel so bad. I mean, my team And especially one, Jennifer Riddle. She is like, she's a doula, and she has dedicated so much time to BirthTube, and she hasn't gotten paid for it. And I would love, and she has a family, and I would love to just like support her as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then, I don't know.
A lot of the people that I follow on YouTube that are in their midsection right now of like, they definitely have like a following, but it's transitioning from that, like, in terms of YouTube, what takes a long time is like editing, and you can film a lot of videos, but it takes a long time to create those stories and do all that stuff. Depending on like, what I love about your format is you are such a live person. So it's like, man, you record it and it's there. You interact with the community and you're done. You've said what you've needed to say, and you can move on to the next thing. You're so on top of it there. It's so much better than...
I mean, I make a lot of mistakes. But I feel like BirthTube is founded upon like live video and just raw, unedited footage. And so I don't have to like perfect it or crop it or trim it or anything like that. I just kind of put it out there, and then it's out there. Yeah. Which is nice.
But in the YouTube space, like when you're creating videos and things like that, it takes time to do the editing and all that stuff. So one of the first things might be like an editor or some other place to like start marketing the videos that you're making. And as those people progress, then they start filling in those gaps of the workload to then free up their brain to do all the things that they're like, what am I really trying to pursue with this? And it sounds like you have awesome aspirations for the future of it, but it's just cool to hear where you're at now in the thick of things, and then how do you translate that to monetization, and and it's not just monetization so you can go be sitting on a yacht for whatever, but it's like, it's actually there because you have a voice for something and you want to pursue that, but you just need to leverage your audience in a way that can get you to that goal.
Yeah. And even at the beginning, to be completely transparent, I was told by a lot of people, and I even thought of myself, like, I might need to charge like a membership. I might need to charge a fee to these people to come watch birth, and just a hosting fee. Like
it takes your time. People have to value your time.
But now that like I'm in it, I don't want to charge people to watch birth, and so I don't even know where I was going with this, but I do see so much power.
The big thing, especially with what we were talking about before, like when we would have conversations before, the big thing is you could start charging from it, but then that creates a barrier of entry. And then that also leaves the question of, so the people hosting the birth, what do they get out of it? And it's like, where does that money transaction happen and all that kind of stuff. But then it could be do you get a free, is it pronounced a doula?
A doula.
Yeah. So do you get a free doula because of this and all that other stuff? Is that where the fees are? It's like such a, in today's day and age of the internet, it's so crazy the different business models that can be built from that.
Yeah. And I think people, especially when it's your passion and progress, you have a hard time charging for something you love and you love to do. And so that's definitely hard, but I had to learn from the very beginning, like I have to, like I said, it would do the community a disjustice if I didn't monetize it. And so
I think it's also saying something towards yourself, because you're valuing yourself.
This is taking me away from my kids
in the product that you're bringing.
No, I think I have a lot of value. No, I'm just kidding. But like, it takes a lot of my time. It takes me away from my kids. I don't think anybody should do anything for free. And so I think once the doula directory does come out and it is public, I might get a little bit of backlash, like, you're charging doulas. But the way I look at it is it's a really small fee, and it's actually helping them. If they get one client from the doula directory, they will, 10 times their money, 10 times. So I think it's also helping them, but not everybody is going to be able to see the big picture, and not everybody is going to agree. They still don't agree.
BirthTubeLive.com.
Yeah. Go there, doula.
As we start to wrap this up,
I don't want to wrap up.
You're like we
could just geek out all day.
we're already at 56 minutes.
I know.
And you even of all the people that listen to my podcast, you're like, an hour is a good amount of time. But when you're in the thick of things talking about stuff, you just you want to continue and talk about all those types of things.
Yeah, but people's attention span is very short these days. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to ask everybody at the end of the podcast, and this is very different for this podcast. So if somebody has something like in your situation, how would you tell them to even start doing what they're doing?
Navigate it.
Yeah, and I don't even know how to phrase the question, because most of the time it's like, oh, how you did the business and how you did that. But like yours was like, well, it could be like, how would you go about doing your birth live? Or would it be like if you were just starting a business?
I think it would be more of like the online and, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Oh, no, I guess I'll just ask. You going from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah.
That's hashtag Drake for all the hip hop fans in here. So the views. Anyhow, going from 0 to 100 real quick overnight. How do you navigate, and what advice would you give to people that, like, say they got experienced somewhat of that viral type of thing, and then where would you dedicate their resources and like their time towards, like, all right, if you have a vision and you have people's attention just for that little sliver of time, if you could go back and tell yourself like, oh, devote it to doing this, what would you tell people?
I mean, I feel like my immediate answer is do what's working. Don't try to like reinvent something. Don't try to like whatever you did to make that impact and create that wave. One, ride the wave. Do not jump off that wave. You want to ride it as much as you can and do what's working. And then also I feel like this is like a loaded question, because I feel like I'm going to repeat my things I've already said, but don't put on some like, what are these called?
Blinders,
thank you.
Yeah.
And stop looking, like, definitely soak up some really good education, like podcasts, or like business podcasts are definitely my thing, but don't look what everybody else is doing, because it is so easy to like get off track and be like, oh, I should be doing X, Y, and Z. And that is probably not a really great answer. I don't know.
I think from people listening to you talk about your experience so far, it's like, well, I had this audience, and then all of a sudden I knew what I wanted to do with it, or an all right idea. And even in the beginning, you had all these other side ventures where you're just like, well, let me do this, let me do that, let me do this. And then all of a sudden this one thing started to click. And then once you started to see the fuel right there, it's like, all right, lock down everything else. I'm going to just do this. And I've finally found like the thing that I can devote my time to.
Yeah, no, I think you answered it for me. It's that. Like, it is so easy to take, like, the momentum and be like, oh, I should do X, Y, and Z, and I need to do this, and I need to leverage that, and I need to start a baby boutique, and I need to sell essential oils. That was a bad idea. And I need to start making shirts and all this stuff. Like, you want to do everything that's taking you away from what you need to be focusing on, which I'm really, really great at that. It's kind of like cleaning my house. Like, I do everything else except what really needs to be done. And yeah, so I think that's thanks for answering it for me. I think that's it. That's definitely it, is to just try to perfect that one thing before it's always great to expand. I think it's always great to have like different side projects, whatever it is. And I also think that to be under one brand, I think at the end of the day, you are the face. And I think it's important to keep it under one brand. One thing,
yeah. What,
do you think?
Well, so with that...
But it's kind of hard to say, because even like the chive, like it would be weird if like Leo was like all over like...
Well, John, the other co-founder of the Chive, that's where we're recording this right now. He has his own personal brand, and it has 100. Well, I think last time I checked, he has like 120 to 130K like followers.
Yeah.
There's a big like, not necessarily a big gap, but there's other little microcosms within the Chive brand. But there's also other companies like John and Leo are like, especially talking to both of them, they're just like on a whole nother level business wise and branding, and like they're at a different place in terms of like where they grew, because the Chive is just like this huge thing now.
But they established the Chive first before they started branding.
Yeah, for sure. The very first part of their company was they were gonna call it DarbyGunpowder.com or something like that.
Nice.
But then it became the Chive, and there's only so much that I can speak to without actually having them here.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we would like don't
don't trash them.
don't misquote me, but
Yeah.
obviously they had the same. I'm assuming they had the same kind of finding these things. They also had the bomb.com. They had the Throttle, which was just specific towards cars and things. They had the Brigade, which was just military. Then they had the Berry. There's 4 different other websites that they tried to start. And that's not.
I think that speaks volumes, though. I think that, like.
But then they just they cut all of those off and then just brought it back under all things Chive.
I think that is a really good point and a good learning experience. And
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
But that was over the span of like all of these things. And then they also had like other ventures and everything. And they have other stuff. Like now they have Chive TV and all this other stuff, which I feel like Chive TV is going to be infinitely bigger than the Chive.
I feel like it's already everywhere.
Yeah. But in terms of all those things, like like if you were to go look at their YouTube page or anything, like we'll have like just the most randomest of videos back to back to back, and it's just all under that same brand.
Yeah.
And I think they got to that point, but I think there's also some sort of speaking from my own personal experience. So I did like the cooking videos, and then I did like vlogging content, and now after I did my material on YouTube and the space that I want to grow in on my own personal channel, is like, oh, I know I enjoy making tutorials, video tutorials. I know that that's the place where I can present the most value to people in that space. So I've come up with 100 episode ideas where I know I can sit down, I can bang these out, and make these tutorials, and it actually provides value to the people watching it. After those 100 episodes, just like, all right, after they're released, let's see where it goes from there. But I think people need to get acclimated to some sort of niche that you're in first. And then if you grow and expand out of that, if it's some sort of segue that's kind of related to it, then it makes sense. Yeah. But I think in terms of what happened with the Chive, is like they had their certain niche, then they start to expand upon it.
Yeah, but it was still all connected to like the Chive.
Yep,
they weren't trying to start a baby clothing line whenever they were streaming.
No, they do have a baby clothing line.
It's Chive. No, I think that's I think that's so important. And I think it's okay. I think it takes trial and error. I think it takes
for sure. It took
trying.
It took me 7. Sorry to cut you off.
No.
But it took. So right now, I think I'm at 78 videos on my YouTube page, and it took and a lot of I'm at a passing right now where some of my cooking videos are doing good, but it just takes me more time to do those, and I find myself not looking up cooking videos when I'm like online. I'm like, what am I looking up? I'm looking up people using cameras and video things. I'm like, if I need to do this in perpetuity for the rest of my life, I want to do something that I'm passionate about.
Yes.
And that I can do that and not like just want to blow my brains out from like, oh, but the thing is I love cooking, and I know I can make really good videos, but it just like, I could see like 5 years down the line, like, well, why? I could see myself stopping it just because. But with the video things, I know I can do that. But then also,
I feel like podcast is your thing.
But that's
I feel your energy. Like,
so that's the other thing too, where doing the podcast, I started another YouTube channel, and the thing is, what I was getting bogged down with was like, man, I have these podcasts, but they're not like, once people come to the page, it's like, all right, if I need to act as if somebody doesn't know anything about me, if they come to my personal YouTube page, what are they going to see? And then one might be like me cooking Gordon Ramsay's meal. The next one might be a podcast. Then the next one's me talking about a Sony A7S. It's like, I'm a smorgasbord of content at that point. Yeah. But
you can put like categories on YouTube, right?
You can put categories. But the other thing is I'm thinking from like sponsorships and all this other stuff. I'm like, all right, let me just start a separate page where I just post the long form podcast. Like, so we're recording this video format. If you want to look up Passion in Progress podcast.
Don't look very crunchy. We're in hills.
You can watch it online, and then it just freed up so much of my brain capacity of like trying to incorporate the two different like quote unquote brands. And now what I can do is I can post all of my long form podcasts under one umbrella, and that's like all over the board. It's like having people like you on. It's like having Leo and Tiff talk about wine. It's like having a graphic designer talk about graphic design, and then I can build in that space. And then what might happen from that is like what you said. If the podcasts are the thing that ends up hitting, then boom. It's like, all right, maybe I'll devote my time to just doing that. And then that's maybe the space where it grows.
Do we want to bet? Do we want to shake on this? I bet you that your podcast is just going to be it. I mean,
but
I love listening to it, and it's just, and you've had so many like different. I mean, now you have like Birth on.
Yeah,
but it's still so relatable, and like I think you're providing people a service, and I think that is what it all kind of boils down to is like
what value. Yeah, it's like if you're giving them your attention, where like what am I getting out of it? You know?
Yeah.
So. That being said, that's like my game plan for the next like foreseeable like 6 months or something like that. And the reason I love the podcast is because like if you're pursuing something as an individual and you hunker down and you're like, man, like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work out every day, and then I'm going to read like a book like every week, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to like make all these YouTube videos about tutorials and everything. The biggest point that I think a lot of people miss is the networking, the actual interaction with other people in real life, whether that be online or not.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the biggest thing that people miss when they're like, all right, I want to grind, I want to hustle, I want to do all this. You have to actually talk to people. You have to go out in the world and actually have like, especially for podcasts, you have to have real world experiences in order to be interesting on the microphone.
Yeah. I mean, BirthTube wouldn't be what it was if I didn't spend hours and hours and hours on like in the comments and responding to every single one. Like, yeah, you have to like build a community before you. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're like it's like let's start to wrap this up 20 minutes ago. But that's one of the things that expanding your horizons, even like in your cerebral whatever cortex or just like your brain in general, I feel like you can grow further just by interacting with people, as opposed to like I have this one set idea, I'm going to sit down and just like really just gut wrench and make that one idea happen. But when you make that one idea happen, is there going to be anybody there to see it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. Like, and I think so many people assume like, oh, this is what the people want, and they never go out there and ask like, hey,
oh, it's so true.
Is this
so
what
true.
you want? Oh, I assumed. I spent a good 6 months assuming. You know what assume does? Scar.
I used to say that all the time.
My first laugh, my first joke of the day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's also, but that's part of the learning curve. It's like I think, especially from me, it was like, all right, and especially being a video editor, sometimes you just have to make those assumptions because your videos have to turn over, and you have to create a video and it has to be within a certain time frame. But literally yesterday I did a podcast with Harvey Danger Films and another YouTuber, great guy, and his thing was, like once he loves YouTube because the comment section can give him feedback on his videos. Like he wasn't a video editor or video maker to begin with. The video editing and things like that in his videos are amazing, but he didn't get to that point from just like, oh, let me throw in all these different transitions. It's like, oh, somebody here would say something about it and somebody here would say something about it. And it's just one of those things where you don't know it until somebody points it out. It's like for my podcast, for example, other people have been giving me tips, you included, where it's like, oh, hey, can you do this and you can do that? And I look back.
I'm a little harsh on mine. Not harsh, but I'm just like, so I like this, but I didn't like this.
But that's what's needed. That's what's needed. And sometimes it can be something where it's like, all right, I can understand where you're coming from, but like other times it's like, man, I didn't even think about doing that. I didn't even think about doing this one thing. And a lot of that stuff, it all compounds and it starts building on each other. Yeah.
And I also think it's important to find like-minded people or people that are passionate with you. Like although like our niche. Oh, and I also think another advice is there's a saying out there, the riches are in the niches. I mean, I'm not looking to get rich, but I think it's so important, especially nowadays, just to like hone down on like your niche, like whatever that is.
Yeah.
So I was saying, although like ours is completely different, but we could talk for hours just
about that whole thing.
Yeah.
We're just gonna keep going.
Part 2.
Everybody's already left the podcast. I'm sorry. Whatever. We're just gonna have our normal conversations that we normally do with Paige and Javier.
I know. I tell you, sometimes the best, or whenever you turn off the recording, you're like, dang it, we should have kept that on.
So there's this other guy, Ty Lopez, and I thought this guy was such a tool bag when I first saw him. He got in the Google ad space game real quick, like right at the very beginning of growing his brand. and he's like a motivational guy. And he talks business. He talks shop about like growing and all that stuff.
That's my kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And but the way that he did it is he had this YouTube ad where he would pop up and you'd be like, you know what's nice? Lamborghinis. And then he's like showing his Lamborghini. Have you seen this?
No, but I can already picture it.
He's taking a selfie with his cell phone. He's like, I have all of this. I have all these riches. I have all this. And you know what got me here? And then he tilts the camera and he's like, these books. The guy reads a book a day. And it like when you hear it, it's like, what kind of pyramid scheme, scam, whatever is this guy doing? And I still like up until about like 2 days ago, I was like, who is this guy and why is he such a tool bag? But then he was on a couple.
Us.
Yeah. I actually, besides watching his advertisements, I saw his actual, like, he was on shows talking about stuff. And I was like, dang, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And one of the things that I'll say two of the different concepts that he brought up was, one, the reason why he was showing Lamborghinis and the books and everything is because he read in all of these different books that marketing to people that are like, I don't know, I want to say like 30 years or older, what they'll do is they will take what you say and then they won't really change their habits. And then anybody that's like a 20-year-old or younger, they'll change their habits, but they're motivated by the outcome. So what he's doing is he's showing the Lamborghini and like, sure, he might look like a tool when he's doing that, but what he's really trying to do is be like, man, I really enjoy the fast life. And like, look at my mansion, but he's leading with that because he's swaying the people that he can actually change their mind about stuff. And like, once I heard his argument about it, I was like, dang, like that makes sense now that I know the story behind why you're showcasing all this and he'll admit, like, look, I look like a narcissist doing this, but there's a reason to why I'm doing it. Second thing I was gonna say is he tries to gear his life in a way that he spends like, I would say 30% of his time with people that are way further along than he is, like his mentors. Then the other 30% are like people on the same level, and then another 30% is like underneath, or or like people that he's trying to teach and do all that stuff too. But what he tries to encourage is like, you're the summation of the whatever 5 people you're closest with, and like what you were just saying, like surrounding yourself with people that are passionate. And I think in doing this podcast is like, I start to seed myself in like these other people, and like other people are reaching out to me that are in the same route, trying to pursue entrepreneurship. And it's cool to like hear and see those stories. But then I'm like, man, these guys are like these like, there's another guy, he had a quote, Paul Xavier, I think is his name. He's like, surround yourself with lions. And it's like, oh, I get it, because if you keep surrounding yourself with other people that are like motivating you, and not only that, but they know they're like kind of mentors in that realm, you're just going to keep leveling up and leveling up and leveling up as you progress. That was a really long rant, and I know when I look at these audio waves, I'm going to be like, man, Javier Mercedes is talking a long time and refers to himself in the third person. Do you have anything to add to that, Paige?
It was so good. It was so good. No, I love it so much. I think it's so important. I have you, but it's hard
your group is so bigger than mine.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, people that like get it, like get the online marketing and online business and growing, and like, you know,
what's working, what's not working, all that stuff, you know?
Yeah. But I'm learning I'm finding my people. I don't know who my people are just yet.
Yeah, like in terms of
right
mentors.
Right now it's podcasts. Right now I'm like, okay, Jenna Kuster, she's my people. Although she has no idea. But I'm like, but yeah.
I'm sure at some point in time you'll probably find yourself on her podcast.
I've done the Boss Bomb podcast, which is a really big deal to me, because I'm still a huge listener, and it's a pretty well-known podcast. But yeah, even stuff like that, like it just, the weirdest things have like come my way. I'm like, why am I on a business podcast right now? Or why am I on hobbies podcast, you know? But I don't know what I was going to say. But yeah, so now I'm starting to like reach, like, nobody streamed Birth Live before. Like, so I don't really, I mean, I have other birth people I guess I could reach out to. And I have a little bit like birth accounts that have a lot of followers on Instagram. I have a call with one every month, and we just talk about like all things what we talk about. But yeah, I think it's super important I had nothing to add to that except for that, to
Well,
to surround yourself with
like-minded, yeah,
and people that are going to help you get to the next level and be passionate about it with you.
You're like, how many times can we make the plug? Where can people find you?
Oh, so you can find us on Facebook, of course. If you just search BirthTube on Facebook, if you are a female, you can join our group. And then
not male hosts of podcasts.
No, Instagram, just at BirthTube. And I'm usually hanging out on the Instagram story. I try to leave our feed to I sprinkle some photos of me and my story and the reason my why in there every once in a while, because like we said, I think that's very important. But I'm usually in the Instagram stories, and then birthtubelive.com. And if the website is not up by the time this comes out, I'm just kidding, it's going to, it better be, but we'll be there. The doula directory. And where else can people find me? I'm Javi's neighbor, in case you like. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. If you want to find me, I'm at JAV Mercedes on all the social things. Look up Javier Mercedes for the just for my personal YouTube stuff. What I was talking about with I'm a video editor for all of those people that were just coming randomly from BirthTubing things. And then Passionate in Progress podcast. If you look that up, you will find either the audio version of it, or you can see Paige's beautiful face in 1080p resolution shot through a Sony A7S and a Atmos Shogun. These are just things that I'm just throwing out there. If these things would like to, these companies would like to sponsor the podcast, that'd be awesome.
That's one thing I wanted to ask. I want to know who you want, like, wanted to sponsor you, like. What do you think who
I want to sponsor me?
Come on, just throw it out there.
Well, at the beginning, it would just be anybody that's in the video space. So like the companies that I'm well acquainted with are like Sony cameras. These microphones are by Shure. A lot of people in the in this space like Rode microphones. I even have like a Rode microphone shirt and a Rode hat. And then Zoom. It's like the tools that I use in order to achieve this thing.
Yep. That's where you need to start is.
Boom.
See, like we
reach
keep
out
going.
To those.
We keep going. We're like, okay, now let's talk about this. Let's talk about.
All right, guys.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your time, Paige.
Thanks. It was fun.
Yes, and you can find her on the BirthTube Live. If you are expecting, you should check it out.
You should. And leave a review for you on the podcast.
Thank you. I would have forgotten.
You're already here. The podcast is about to end. You might as well just click the 5 stars.
Yep.
So you don't forget.
Be like, Javier is the best interviewer in life. Yes. All right. Thank you guys so much. See you on the next one. Bye.